All right, well, let's get started. Like I said, I'm Andrew Justice. I'm the Policy Associate on the Thriving Communities team at Smart Growth America. I am joined here by my colleagues, John Robert Smith. He is the former mayor of Meridian, Mississippi, where he was mayor for 16 years, and the former chairman of the board at Amtrak, as well as Emily Schweninger. She is the deputy director of Thriving Communities and has an extensive background in public health. And with that, I will turn it over to Emily.
Thank you, Andrew. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this informational webinar on the Champions Institute. We're going to give you a background on who we are and what we are doing and who we're partnering with, and then we'll give you, a clear sense of what the Champions Institute is, what we plan to do, and what the application procedure would look like. And then we'll have open time at the end for questions and answers. So please, if you have any questions, you can feel free to go ahead and put them in the question section or in the chat box. We will be gathering those as we go. And at the end in the section for questions and answers, we will be addressing those questions. So thank you. Please feel free to just continue to add them in. So just to introduce Smart Growth America, for those of you who are unfamiliar, we're a national nonprofit formed by a community of partners that work within different spheres, spheres of transportation, land use, economic development, public health, and equity. And as you can see, our vision is a country where no matter where you live or who you are, you can enjoy a place that is healthy, prosperous, and resilient. Next slide, please. Smart Growth America, we empower communities through technical assistance, advocacy, and thought leadership to create livable places, healthy people, and shared prosperity. And our work all over the country gives us a unique perspective on what communities are facing, directly informing our advocacy efforts and positioning us as leaders of the smart growth movement. We work with a diverse stakeholders, a group of stakeholders, including elected officials at all levels, real estate developers, chambers of commerce, transportation and urban planning professionals, health and education professionals, advocacy groups, and residents alike, to improve everyday life for people across the country through better development decisions. And as part of our community of partners, the National Complete Streets Coalition is part of that partnership that promotes the development and implementation of policies and professional practices that ensure streets are safe for people of all ages and abilities, and that balance the needs of different modes while supporting local land uses, economies, cultures, and the natural environment. Next slide, please. And we are pleased to join you today, Smart Growth America and the National Complete Streets Coalition, in partnership with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Division of Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity Initiative, their initiative of Active People, Healthy Nation. It's a national movement that is working in partnership with many organizations and communities and individuals working together to create an active America by getting 27 million Americans more physically active by 2027. On the right, you can see an image of the former director of the National Complete Streets Coalition, Emiko Atherton, who spoke at a congressional briefing earlier this year, different time, different world, it feels like now, at a congressional briefing here in Washington, D.C. And if you look directly to her left, that is the Surgeon General of the United States, Jerome Adams. And directly to his left is Dr. Ruth Peterson, the director of CDC's Division of Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity. And it was at this congressional briefing that Active People, Healthy Nation was launched officially as an initiative. And it is through that initiative that we have this strong partnership where we are working together, next slide please, to address a very serious problem that we're seeing in the country, which is that too few Americans get the recommended amount of physical activity. 31 million adults are completely inactive. Only 1 in 5 adults and high school students actually meet the physical activity guidelines that are laid out by the Surgeon General, and only 40% of school-aged youth can walk to school, do so. So we have a lot of work to do. We know that regular physical exercise is a wonder drug. It reduces the risk of chronic disease and it improves the quality of life. So then we ask ourselves the question, why aren't people moving? This is where, we see that part of the problem is that communities across America consistently lack adequate infrastructure where people can walk, bike, and roll to their everyday destinations. This street may look familiar to you. This may look like a street in your community. This is actually from a walking audit that we did in a workshop in Alabama. Fundamentally, complete streets make communities safer and healthier by protecting everyone who uses the road. Our report, part of our leadership, is the Dangerous by Design report, shows that the number of people struck and killed by drivers while walking has risen in recent years, reaching levels not seen in nearly 3 decades, which is alarming. And what we see also, which is also alarming and disturbing, is that the victims of this traffic violence are disproportionately Black and Native Americans. And as a result of unjust transportation decisions, vulnerable populations tend to experience higher risk of negative health impacts associated with transportation, such as being struck and killed while walking at higher rates, being exposed to higher rates of respiratory diseases like asthma from harmful emissions, or having reduced access to key health resources such as healthy foods, healthcare services, and parks within a safe walk of home. Next slide, please. This is why we're working together with CDC's Division of Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity, DMPAO, and working in partnership across the nation with national, state, and local partners. It's to promote the recommendations from the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americas and looking at effective strategies to improve physical activity. And the strategy that we're really focused on and that we would like your collaboration and partnership in is the activity-friendly routes to everyday destinations. And this is where we tie in the routes, which is the roads that we use, to the destinations, which is the places that we want to go, such as our places of worship, the schools that we study in, the stores that we shop in, and the hospitals that we visit. So this is all founded, again, on the equitable and inclusive access issue, which is the base and foundation of the work that we do in partnership with CDC. And so through that work, we have launched the initiative, the program, the Champions Institute, and I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, my esteemed colleague, the Honorable John Robert Smith, to introduce you to the Champions Institute. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Emily. And thank all of you for joining us on the webinar today. After 20 years of local government myself and visiting 127 different cities and towns across the country doing technical assistance work while I've been at Smart Growth America, I know full well the impact that local leaders have in creating communities where all of their citizens can thrive. I've worked with local leaders to leverage their concerns and their voices to impact federal policy and funding for local community initiatives. You see here with the local leaders assembled for our first and main program at a Hill briefing here in Washington, D.C. But I know that the greatest impact that local leaders make are back in their hometowns, how they choose to put pieces of their community together in the built environment. Next slide. You see, you're important because only you have the planners, the public works department, the right of way you own or the right of way you can leverage. And if those tools are used wisely, they comprise the framework for a healthier, safer, more resilient, more equitable, and in the long run, a more affordable life and economy for the people you serve. You see, this is for you, the elected official, and no one else. Next slide. Emily and Andrew and I will be joined by a team of experts. We will lead 8 modules or courses, each dealing with a different aspect of creating a healthy built environment. And each course building on the previous course and linking to the next. When you've completed these courses, you will not only be informed yourself, you will become a teacher too, a teacher back in your state, in your region, with your other colleagues that you serve with. Much of our work has been in technical assistance with site visits, such as our work you see on the right of the slide in Seattle, Washington. But COVID has required us to develop remote learning skills and techniques and programs that are equally impactful, as you see in our work in Tallulah, Louisiana. Next slide. The courses I mentioned will take you from a basic understanding of active routes to daily destinations and how they can be woven into your land use decisions, the impact of federal policy and funding on those decisions. You will develop your own local policy for implementation, and you'll learn the designs that are possible, the costs that go with that, and the funding necessary to provide these investments. Importantly for local leaders, you will learn the ROI, the return on investment, for the choices you make in that built environment that will impact not only the resources of your government in a positive way, but your people in a positive way as well, all leading to a planned and implemented project. You see, you'll learn on both the planning side, for example, land use workshop here you see in Summit, Missouri, but you'll also learn and implement from the implementation side. How many of you have proposed what you believe is an exciting new project for your community? And yet you hear, perhaps from the fire department, oh, we can't do that here. Turning radius isn't sufficient, can't do that. Well, this is from South Bend, Indiana. We'll teach you ways where you can, with a little paint and some minimal cones and cording, you can demonstrate and let that ladder truck make that turn. And you know what? You'll find, yes, we can do that here. Next slide. We'll arm you with comprehensive reports, in-depth studies, and guides that will be part of the curriculum of the classes that you learn. And this is very much schoolwork and learning. And it will also be part of the class materials. Next slide. Now, while we'll lead the teams in this process, as you see in Huntsville, Alabama on the left, what's important is by working with you, we'll create a platform of peer exchange and peer learning, where you see here in Erwin, Tennessee. Next slide. You know, as mayor, I inherited an office, probably as many of you did, whether you're a mayor, council member, county official, or tribal member. You inherited an office that was filled with plans and visions that had never been implemented. I wouldn't put you through a process without implementation. I respect you and I respect your time too much for that. The first 6 modules or courses you see will prepare you to develop your own specific implementation plan that will lead to a project that will lead to measurable results. At the end of these courses, you'll have something to show the people you serve for the effort you put in. I look forward to working with each and every one of you and look forward to you joining us in what I think will be an exciting adventure over the coming months. I'll now turn it over to Andrew, who will lead you through the application process, and then we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have coming from that. Thank you.
Thank you, John Robert. And thank you to all the attendees for joining us today. First, I want to help you all with your application. Broadly, you should be asking yourself 3 questions while you complete your application. The first would be, how can you, through your application, demonstrate your interest personally in establishing more complete streets and more activity-friendly routes to everyday destinations? Then, how can you show your community's need for these more complete streets and activity-friendly routes, especially from an equity perspective. How can it help those in your community who need help the most? And finally, how will participating in the Champions Institute help you to serve your community? So now, on the left side of your screen, you can see some of the eligibility criteria for who can apply. Like we've said, elected officials only. This would exclude, say, professional staff or political appointees. Applicants must be from the United States or represent territory in the United States or a territory like Puerto Rico or Guam. They should be able to fully commit the time, not only of the modules themselves, but the time outside the modules to read and complete the work products, which through the first 6 modules will be about an hour's worth of reading before every session. Participants should also have a strong interest in developing their own capacity and expertise in complete streets. Finally, generally about the application, scoring will be on a 25% basis for each of these 4 categories. The first would be interest in complete streets, demonstrating the need in your community, then demonstrating broader support within your community. This can be both from other elected officials, professional staff, the business community, other grassroots organizations. If you can show that there's support for more complete streets from those groups, that would of course help your application. And finally, demonstrating your ability to personally commit time to the Champions Institute. Now on to some key dates. The most important date at this stage is that applications are due at the close of business on September 10th. From there, we will notify applicants, both who are accepted into the inaugural class and those who will be invited to apply next year on October 7th. We'll also provide a press release for those who are selected to the Champions Institute on that day. It'll be in a template form, and you'll be able to work with your city staff to complete it before circulating it in your community. And finally, the first module will begin on October 22nd, which is a Thursday, and it will be in the afternoon. So now we'll move on to Q&A. But before then, there will be a follow-up email from this webinar in about an hour after we finish. It will cover the important dates I just discussed, and it will have a link to the application information page, as well as a frequently asked questions page. From there, though, we will bring back Emily and John Robert and answer your questions.
Thank you, Andrew. And I see that we have a few questions that have been shared with us, but please, for those of you who are on that have any other questions, please go ahead and share them in the question box, or if you have any comments in the chat box, please feel free to share. So the first question that we have, and John Robert, I think you can help me answer this one, which is, what role can local constituents play? This question is from someone who is not a local elected official.
Well, if you're joining as a citizen and you want to see one of your local leaders be a part, take this application to them, share it with them, urge them, tell them you're counting on them. Local leaders, we're focused on local leaders because, as I said, they have those tools and they have the authority to use those tools. Also, through the process, if I were taking this course and I were still in office, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be reaching out to citizens in my community and say, yeah, I've been selected for this, but I need your help. I need you to help open my eyes to where we have incomplete ways for children to get to school, or we have barriers that are set up for unintentionally for the elderly or for those that lack mobility. Let your citizens become your broader set of eyes to help you choose your ultimate project. That would be an important way for a non-elected to be engaged in this process.
Yeah, and I also would think that you would be able to maybe work with any coalitions, if you could have that request not just come from an individual citizen, but rather from a group of interested organizations or whomever might be the important stakeholders in your community. So I would also urge anyone who has that situation where they're trying to encourage an elected official to find that base of support. This is another question that I think, John Robert, you'll be able to help answer, which is, we're hearing, this is Jake Newborn, who says, I'm hearing from my representatives that due to budget season requirements, it will be hard to demand more from our elected representatives during this fall, particularly because of the challenges with police brutality, COVID, and other things this year. Can you address this or a way to still get involved for them?
Sure. Yes, everyone in government at almost any level is facing unparalleled challenges that they've had in the past. For me, I faced 2 severe hurricanes and the damage that comes from that. But you have to be thinking about how you come out the other side of a disaster. And the pandemic, while it presents hurdles that we did not have to address, even with total devastation of the hurricane, still, we're coming through COVID. Now, how do we come out the other side? Do we want to be just like we are today before COVID, or do we want to be in a better position? So I think for a local leader, taking advantage during this time to learn ways to actually emerge from the pandemic with a better built environment, a more inclusive, more equitable local environment would be something that I would want to spend my time doing. And when you think about an hour in prep, and then you've got 2 hours in each module, and then after the initial process of the 6 courses that'll be completed in February, then you will have time to develop your project. But think, while we're dealing with disasters on hand, we always have to be thinking about how we come out better and how we plan to be strong.
And I think I know the answer to this, which is someone has asked if the applications will be public, because there might be aspects within the application that would not be flattering to the city. And the applications will not be made public. They will be for review among Smart Growth America and our partners at CDC only, but we will not be publicly sharing any one application. So you don't need to worry about that. Anything in the application will be considered confidential in that sense. Additionally, the next question that we have coming in, and it looks like there's a lot of great questions, so thank you all. We have someone who's just recently been elected as a county commissioner and will not be sworn in until January. Can this person still apply? They're very interested. Presently chair of the New Athens in Motion Bike Ped Commission, overseeing the new Bike Med Master Plan. And I would say yes, John Robert.
Absolutely. Once you have been elected, you are in effect in that position. You won't have the power of it, but in January you will, and you will have all of the information and the instruction and the work ahead of you before you even take office. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Agreed. And another question, it starts on October 22nd, as we described. When does it finish? And I think John Robert addressed some of this just in his response to a previous question, which is courses will be occurring through February, and then March will be the development of the work plan, which we will then monitor results through the end of the course year, which will come wrap right back around to October. And then continue, John Robert.
Well, I was going to say, and we will be a resource as you put together your work plan, but we won't do it for you. It'll be your work plan and your project. We can help give you some guidance there or be a sounding board for you. But after you've developed the work plan, then you will implement it. And then you will report back to the full group your implementation and your successes.
And the next question, John Robert, are multi-person teams allowed? We would have an elected official as the team lead with technical staff and 3 community members as support. Would we all be allowed to listen into the webinars with the support in listen-only mode?
Yes, the elected official has to be on each of the courses and stay on for the whole course. This can't be, and I was an elected official, as I said, I know how this sometimes works. The elected official will start and then they turn it over to a chief of staff or their community development director. It doesn't work like that. The local elected official will be the one chosen, will be the one to attend. Now, if they want to add other support staff during a particular course or module to listen, not to respond, but to listen and therefore help them make sure they've heard everything and can be a resource to that elected official, then that's perfectly acceptable.
Another question that we have is around the challenges that many elected officials will have around their budgeting time. This is one of the challenges will be getting elected officials that need this training the most, who are already overwhelmed because planning resources have been stripped through budget cuts. So the real question is, how many hours are going to be involved in this commitment?
So as we've said, each module, each course is planned. That's the first 6 courses of 2 hours each. There will be about an hour's of reading in preparation prior to the course so you can get the most out of that particular module. And then when it comes to developing your implementation plan, that obviously will take more work and effort. And then you get to the point of implementation, that's obviously going to require some additional staff time as well. But the first 6 courses, you're talking about 3 hours basically with prep time and actually attending in each of those 6. But then you want to have something to show at the end of the process.
The next question that we've received is, once a local leader is accepted into the Institute, what is the expectation of support from the REACH staff, considering this would coincide with ongoing physical activity work? And if I can jump in and say that the hope would be that there would be coordination and collaboration. The goal in serving and engaging the elected official is that individual's ability to coordinate and bring all of those different programs and projects together and create synergies. So while the elected official would be the one receiving the training, would be the person who would be responsible for developing the project in coordination with their team, we would expect that there would be some opportunities to build on programs and projects together with any REACH program that's working on physical activity in that area. Another question that we have received is how many people will be selected in this program. We have set a goal for 20 Institute members, and the idea being that we want a small enough group that every individual can receive the specific attention that they'll need, particularly in the development of the work plan. John Robert, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, no, I think 20 is the ideal number to work with, because this is very much individualized when you get to the planning and the implementation part of the process. And then, of course, wanting to have the engagement during each of the modules presentation. Now, if we have 21 stellar applicants, we're not going to cut off at 20. But 20 is the round number that we think would be a very workable number. And this is the first class.
Yes, and I think Andrew mentioned that before. This is the first class, and anybody who submits an application that is not selected for this class will be invited to apply again when we hold another Champions Institute. The next question is, do we have the ability to send in our applications directly? I've submitted an application on the website but haven't received a confirmation yet. And if you haven't received a confirmation, please feel free to send that directly to Andrew, whose email address should be available in the chat box. Andrew, if you can put it in there. And also will be available when we follow up with the email after the webinar. There'll be the information included there. Will include his contact information. So if you haven't received a confirmation, please follow up with Andrew. We do want to make sure that we've received everyone's application. And thank you so much for taking the time to work on it. The next question is, how often do the course modules occur? We are trying to be sensitive to both people's normal work schedules and demands, and also being considerate of the calendar and things like city budgeting, holidays, etc. So based on that, the 6 learning modules will occur roughly every 3 weeks. We have a calendar set up, but we will share that with the selected group in order to ensure that we are hitting the best dates possible for everybody who is selected to be included in the Champions Institute. Another question is there a fee? No, there is not. We want to thank the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Division for Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity for partnering with us at Smart Growth America, which allows us to be able to offer this to elected officials without any fee, which, as many who are familiar with our work understand, that is quite a deal. John Robert, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm very pleased that CDC and our partners made this opportunity possible for us. My heart is still in local government, and I certainly want to take just a second and tell you how much I appreciate your service and can only imagine what you're dealing with at this present time. And that's why taking an hour this afternoon to be with us means a great deal to me personally. Thank you.
The next question is, will we know the time of the modules before we apply? We are considering that the best time for many will be on Thursdays in the afternoon. We have to consider both what the sort of weekly demands are for a city official or local official, but also considering the hours because we are open to Central, Mountain, Pacific time. Even though we are based on the East Coast, we want to find a time window that will be most convenient for as many people as possible. So we are planning to schedule modules on Thursday afternoons, if that is helpful for anyone in blocking out their time. The next question is, our city has been talking about implementing an urban trail system throughout the city to improve connectivity and mobility. However, we are currently in the initial stages of identifying where the trails, multi-use paths would be installed. However, implementation may not be happening until next year when we can budget for some of the construction. So this is something that I can still participate in, or do we need to be in a position to fund and implement the plan in order to participate in this institute now? John Robert?
No, you don't have to have a project that's ready to go with funding in place, because your project may be that you have defined the rest of the trail through your community. You filled in the gaps. You now have it fully understood, fully articulated. So your project may be creating a complete streets policy at the local level and getting it passed. So any part of any one of the courses could be a jumping off point for your particular project.
Great. And I think we need to also think about the ways that participating in this course might change a project. There might be some things that somebody learns along the way that could really improve on an existing project that's in the pipeline. So I think that, go ahead.
I was going to say that's a very good point, Emily, because we learn not only how to do it right, we learn how to take what we thought was right and alter it and amend it and make it better. And actually, we'll find we've had blind spots in some of our planning, and a project can be removing those policy blind spots and creating what we really thought we were creating in the first place.
The next question we have is, our ethics rules disallow us from accepting certain things that could be construed as gifts. Beyond getting knowledge in the materials, is there any compensation, gifts, or benefits I should be aware of before applying?
No, you're going to get information. You're going to get access to the documents that I referenced, the guides, the studies, the reports. You'll get the full curriculum, but there will be, other than the knowledge and the support that you will receive through the 8 modules, there will be nothing that can be construed as a gift. And I had to deal with that when I was in elected office as well.
The gift of knowledge.
Which will have a great value, but it
Yes.
won't be something you can monetize.
No. I think that we have gone through all of the questions that we've received here in the question box. If anybody else has any other questions, please share them now. Or as Andrew mentioned before, you will receive a follow-up email after this webinar, which will include some important links, both to the sort of standard information around the Champions Institute, some of which we shared, the eligibility requirements, the link to the application, and it also includes Andrew's direct contact. We have a frequently asked questions page, which based on this conversation, we may amend and add to. So thank you all for your questions. And so I think that you'll have all the information that you need available to you, but please do not hesitate, again, to reach out. Andrew's contact is in the chat box, and it's also on the informational page around the Champions Institute. He'll be your best first point of contact if you have any questions regarding the Champions Institute. If you want to share this information, please feel free to share the information on our website, smartgrowthamerica.org, where you'll see, again, all the basic information. So please forward this along. We are really looking forward to this inaugural class being strong. And we know that there's a lot of competing priorities at this time. You know, as was mentioned by one of the questions, between, you know, dealing with the uprisings around police brutality. You know, we know we have an important election coming. We know that, you know, COVID is not going away very quickly. So we understand that everybody has a lot of competing interests, but we really believe strongly that this course will be a support to you. It will strengthen your work and strengthen your communities as we're moving through this crisis. And we're also convinced that in order to best recover, this is an opportunity to create those plans, because as we know from the past, you know, we've been knocked down before, and when we get up strong and we get up quickly. And so it's in all of our best interests to be thinking about how we want our communities to look when we come through this crisis. John Robert, I wanted to know if you wanted to leave everybody with any parting thoughts, and then I think we can wrap up.
Well, thank you, Emily. And I would just say to all of you who have joined us again, thank you. Thank you for your service to your people at your local government. And, you know, you're investing time now in a very busy season and juggling many demands placed on you. But you'll be giving your time so that when you and your community emerge, you have a more equitable, better connected, more vibrant, more resilient community for the next difficulty you will face, which there will be another, and we've all been there before. Your job is to get the community through and through to a finer life moving forward. And I think this is a tremendous opportunity for you. I think your citizens and I think the next generation are counting on you to make that happen. Thank you.
Well, thank you all again for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to receiving your applications, and we look forward to announcing our first class of the Champions Institute in this October. So very excited. Thanks again, and please, all of you, be safe, be well, and we look forward to being in touch. Thank you all.